The massive Imperial ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its golden hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. On Earth, radar operators stared at their screens in disbelief. First contact had arrived, but not in the way anyone had expected. Admiral James Miller stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender, Earth's newest warship, watching the tactical display with practiced calm. Around him, his crew maintained their professional demeanor, though he could sense their tension. 3 more Imperial ships had appeared, taking position behind what appeared to be their flagship. "Status report," Miller ordered, his voice steady. "Sir, their ships are big, really big." Lieutenant Wilson paused at his scanner, but their energy readings are surprisingly low for vessels that size. Before Miller could respond, all communication channels lit up with an incoming transmission. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, humanoid figure dressed in what could only be described as something from a fancy dress party. Golden robes, decorated with countless medals and ribbons, draped over the alien's slender frame. "Primitive human world," the figure announced, its translator creating perfectly understandable English. "I am Grand Admiral Dex of the Imperial Galactic Fleet. Your world has been discovered by our glorious empire, which spans 10,000 star systems. You will surrender immediately and accept Imperial rule." Miller raised an eyebrow. Behind him, someone coughed to hide a laugh. The Imperial Admiral continued, "Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our superior technology. Our mighty laser arrays have conquered countless civilizations. You have 1 planetary rotation to decide." The transmission cut off. Miller turned to his tactical officer. Analysis. "Sir," the officer began, struggling to keep a straight face, "their primary weapons appear to be laser-based. Their shields are designed to deflect. More lasers. No sign of kinetic barriers or point defense systems. They're practically naked against our railguns." Miller nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The Empire had apparently never developed past energy weapons, while humanity had continued pushing the boundaries of physics and engineering. Their railguns could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed, and their missile systems carried yields that could crack small moons. "Send word to Fleet Command," Miller ordered, "and get me a secure line to the other captains. We need to coordinate our response." Over the next several hours, Earth's military leadership met in emergency session. Reports flowed in from all ships scanning the Imperial vessels. Each new piece of data made it harder for the assembled officers to maintain their professional composure. "They don't even have basic inertial dampeners," one analyst reported, causing several admirals to snort with laughter. "Their ships have to turn slowly to avoid crushing their crews. Our destroyers could run circles around them." Miller sat through these briefings, maintaining his composure even as others struggled with theirs. The situation was almost comical. Humanity's first contact with a galactic empire, only to find them technologically centuries behind in almost every way that mattered. When the Imperial deadline approached, Earth's response was ready. Miller stood on his bridge once again as the communications channel opened. Grand Admiral Dex appeared, looking even more pompous than before. "What is your answer, humans? Will you submit to Imperial rule?" Miller cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Admiral, we must decline. We suggest you reconsider your position. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The Imperial Admiral's face turned a deeper shade of blue. "You dare. You have sealed your fate. Our laser arrays will reduce your primitive vessels to ash." As the transmission ended, Miller turned to his crew. All pretense of holding back amusement was gone. The tactical officer was openly grinning. "Sir," his XO said, "should we show them what a real warship can do?" Miller shook his head. "Not yet. Let them make the first move, but have all weapons ready. Something tells me this will be a short fight." Across Earth's defense fleet, crews prepared for battle, their initial nervousness about alien contact replaced by confident determination. They weren't afraid of the Empire's primitive weapons. They were trying not to laugh at them. The stage was set for humanity's first interstellar conflict, and it was already clear that the mighty Galactic Empire had no idea what they were about to face. The Imperial ships moved with all the grace of whales in space, their massive golden hulls reflecting distant starlight. 3 capital ships against 2 human destroyers. In the Empire's mind, this was an overwhelming show of force. Captain Robert Stone watched from the bridge of the EDF Thunder as the enemy vessels lumbered into attack position. His ship, alongside the EDF Lightning, had been chosen to demonstrate humanity's military capabilities to the Empire. "They're charging their laser arrays," his sensor officer reported, trying to hide a smile. "At their current power levels, our basic shields could hold for days." Stone nodded. "Let them fire first. Record everything. The Empire needs to learn." The first Imperial blast lit up space, a brilliant beam of concentrated light that splashed harmlessly against the Thunder shields. The energy dispersed across the protective field, causing it to shimmer slightly but nothing more. "Shield strength at 99.8%, reported the defense officer. "Sir, I think they're using industrial mining lasers." Stone couldn't help but shake his head. The Empire had somehow managed to spread across thousands of worlds using technology that Earth had surpassed centuries ago. "Send them a final warning." "No response, sir. They're charging for another volley." "Very well." Stone straightened in his command chair. "Weapons, select target. 1 round only. Standard kinetic penetrator, 20% speed." The Thunder's main railgun aligned with the nearest Imperial vessel. The weapon itself was barely visible from outside, just a slight bulge in the destroyer's sleek hull. But inside, magnetic fields were building, preparing to launch a tungsten rod at speeds that would make older generations of scientists weep. "Target locked. Weapons reported. Ready to fire." "Execute." The railgun fired. There was no bright flash, no dramatic beam of light, just a silent launch that accelerated the projectile to a fraction of its maximum speed, still fast enough to cross the distance to the Imperial ship in less than a second. The impact was spectacular. The kinetic round punched through the Imperial ship's shields, as if they weren't there, tore through the golden hull like paper, and exited the other side. The massive vessel's own momentum did the rest, ripping it apart along the wound channel. Silence fell across the Thunder's bridge as the Imperial ship split in 2, secondary explosions rippling along its length. The other 2 Imperial vessels hung motionless, as if their crews couldn't process what they had just witnessed. "Enemy vessel destroyed," Tactical announced unnecessarily. "Sir, the other Imperial ships are just sitting there." An incoming transmission broke the moment. A different Imperial officer appeared on screen, his face a lighter shade of blue than normal. What kind of demons are you? What sorcery can penetrate our mighty shields?" Stone leaned forward. "That was a basic kinetic round, fired at reduced speed. We have thousands more, along with weapons you clearly haven't encountered before. Stand down, and we can end this without further loss of life." "Impossible," the Imperial officer sputtered. "Our scientists assured us. Our data showed. Primitive worlds can't." "Your data was wrong," Stone interrupted. "Your scientists became complacent. While you perfected your lasers, we explored other paths. This is your final warning." The Imperial ships began to turn, their huge engines flaring as they attempted to retreat. The maneuver was painfully slow, their massive size working against them. "Sir," weapons called out, "the EDF Lightning reports ready. Should we disable their engines?" Stone considered it for a moment. "No. Let them run. Let them tell their leaders what happened here. Sometimes the best lesson is one you survive to learn from." The Imperial ships finally aligned for their escape and vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind the scattered remains of their companion. Stone ordered his crew to collect debris samples for analysis, knowing Earth scientists would want to study Imperial technology, outdated as it was. "Send word to Admiral Miller," Stone ordered. Tell him Phase 1 is complete. The Empire has learned their first lesson about humanity. There's more than one way to fight a war. As his crew began recovery operations, Stone knew this was just the beginning. The Empire wouldn't take this humiliation lightly. But humanity was ready, and perhaps a little eager, to teach them a few more lessons about the dangers of underestimating primitive worlds. Intelligence Officer Anna Thompson stared at the holographic display showing the recovered Imperial technology. After 3 days of analysis, she still couldn't believe what she was seeing. The Empire's most advanced warship used systems that would have been considered outdated during Earth's first moon landing. "Play the engine analysis again," she ordered. The lab's AI brought up a detailed scan of the Imperial ship's remnants. The door opened, and Admiral Miller walked in. "Tell me you have something interesting, Thompson." She gestured at the display. "Interesting isn't the word, sir. It's almost sad. Their entire civilization has been stuck in a technological rut for thousands of years." "Explain." Thompson brought up several comparison charts. Their fastest ships can only achieve light speed using massive amounts of energy. Our smallest scout vessels are 10 times faster. Their weapons. She laughed softly. "They're still trying to make bigger lasers while we moved on to mass drivers and quantum weaponry centuries ago." Miller studied the data. How did they build an empire this way? "They didn't find any serious competition," Thompson replied. "Most worlds they conquered were pre-spaceflight civilizations. They'd been the biggest fish in a very small pond, using the same technology for millennia. No one ever forced them to innovate." The display shifted to show the Imperial ship's shield systems. "Look at this, sir. Their shields are designed solely to reflect energy weapons. They never considered kinetic attacks. It's like building a bulletproof vest that only works against one specific caliber. And their response to any problem seems to be, make it bigger," Miller noted, pointing at the ship schematics. "Bigger ships, bigger lasers, bigger shields." "Exactly." Thompson pulled up new data. "Their ships are practically hollow. All that size is just wasted space. One of our destroyers carries more firepower than their largest battleship, and we can move 3 times faster." A junior analyst rushed into the lab, holding a datapad. "Sir, ma'am, we've intercepted Imperial communications. They're mobilizing their grand fleet, over 1,000 ships." Miller and Thompson exchanged looks. Under normal circumstances, news of a 1,000-ship fleet would cause panic. Instead, Miller just shook his head. "Show me their deployment pattern," he ordered. The analyst projected a tactical map. The Imperial fleet was gathering in neat, orderly rows, a formation that might have looked impressive 1,000 years ago. "Their tactical doctrine is as outdated as their technology," Thompson observed. "They're still using ancient naval warfare concepts, in space, against modern weapons." Miller studied the formation. Those tight groups, one good strike could take out dozens of ships at once. "They're making this almost too easy." "There's more," Thompson added, bringing up sensor data. "Their targeting systems can't track our ships at full speed. By the time their weapons lock on, we're already somewhere else. It's like watching a turtle try to catch a hummingbird." The Admiral's communicator beeped. "Miller here." "Sir," came the voice of Captain Stone. "The Empire is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding our immediate surrender, or they'll darken our skies with their armée." Miller couldn't help but smile. "They still think quantity can overcome quality." "Thompson, what's your assessment? How many ships would we need to counter their fleet?" She ran quick calculations. "Given their demonstrated capabilities, 50 of our warships could handle their entire force. Maybe less if we use our drone fighters. They have no defense against automated weapons. They consider AI dangerous," the analyst added. "Their ships are entirely crew-operated. Even their targeting is manual." Miller nodded slowly. "So they're bringing 1,000 outdated ships, crewed by people who don't understand modern warfare, to fight an enemy they can't catch, using weapons that can't penetrate our defenses." "That's about it, sir," Thompson confirmed. "Should I prepare a full briefing for Earth Defense Command?" "Do it." "But Thompson." Miller paused at the door. "Try to keep a straight face during the presentation this time. The last thing we need is the civilian leadership thinking we're not taking this seriously." As the Admiral left, Thompson turned back to her analysis. Earth had spent centuries preparing for hostile alien contact, advancing its technology, improving its defenses. The Empire, in its arrogance, had done none of that. Now they were about to learn a harsh lesson about the dangers of technological stagnation. "Poor bastards," she muttered, watching the Imperial fleet's slow advance. "They have no idea what's coming." Commander David Wells stood in the control center of Earth's newest space station, watching as 50 human warships took their positions. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human engineering, sleek, deadly, and more advanced than anything the Empire could imagine. "Launch the drone fighters," he ordered. Across the fleet, launch bays opened. Hundreds of unmanned combat vessels, each the size of a small car, streamed into space. Their silver hulls gleamed briefly before advanced stealth systems made them nearly invisible. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "Imperial scouts detected at the edge of the system. They're trying to map our defenses." Wells smiled. "Let them look. Security Protocol Omega is in effect. They'll only see what we want them to see." The holographic display showed the Imperial scouts using primitive scanning technology. Earth's ships were projecting false signatures, appearing larger and slower than they really were. It was like showing shadows to fool a child. "Status of the defense grid?" Wells asked. "All stations report ready, sir. Automated platforms are in position around Jupiter, Mars, and Earth. Missile pods are cloaked and armed." Wells nodded, reviewing the tactical overlay. Earth's 50 ships were scattered across key defensive positions, looking vulnerable and isolated to Imperial sensors. The trap was set. Lieutenant Parker approached with a datapad. "Sir, the drone swarms are in position. All 1,000 units report combat ready." 1,000 units. Wells raised an eyebrow. "I only ordered 500 launched." Parker grinned. "Each drone is projecting doubled signatures, sir. The Empire sensors will read 2,000 fighters instead of 1,000. Their commanders are already sending panicked messages about our impossible numbers." Wells laughed. Earth's military had learned long ago that deception was as powerful as any weapon. The Empire, used to straightforward battles with primitive civilizations, had never developed countermeasures against electronic warfare. "Message from Admiral Miller," the comms officer announced. "The Empire's Grand Fleet has begun its advance. Time to intercept, 6 hours." "Right on schedule," Wells murmured. He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, execute Operation Mockingbird. Show them what they expect to see." Earth's warships began a series of careful maneuvers, deliberately making their movements look clumsy and uncertain. To Imperial observers, it would appear that humanity's forces were scrambling in panic. "Sir," Tactical reported, "the enemy fleet is maintaining their predictable formation. 3 main groups, tight spacing, minimal point defense coverage." Wells studied the Imperial approach. Their massive ships moved in rigid patterns, following combat doctrines that hadn't changed in centuries. It was like watching a reenactment of an ancient battle. "Update from intelligence," Parker said. "The Empire's targeting systems are having trouble with our electronic warfare. They're getting ghost readings everywhere. Their commanders are arguing about which targets are real." "Good." Wells brought up the drone control interface. "Begin combat simulation drills. Let's show their scouts what they're up against." The drone fighters executed a series of complex maneuvers, their speeds far exceeding anything the Empire's ships could match. Each drone could pull turns that would kill an organic pilot, and their reaction times were measured in microseconds. Imperial communications intercepted, the comms officer reported. They're asking their high command if retreat is an option." "Request denied, I assume." "Yes, sir. Their supreme commander is insisting this is all a primitive deception. He's ordered the fleet to continue their advance. Wells shook his head. Pride and arrogance were about to cost the Empire dearly. Send word to all ships. Maintain current positions. Let them come to us. As the Imperial fleet drew closer, Wells couldn't help but feel a touch of sadness. All that power, all those ships, all that history, about to be undone because they never imagined someone could surpass them. Final preparations complete, sir, Parker reported. The fleet is ready. Drones are armed. Defense grid is hot. Wells looked at the massive Imperial armada approaching Earth. They thought their 1,000 ships would overwhelm humanity's defenses. They thought their ancient technology would prevail through sheer numbers. They were wrong. Now we wait, Wells said quietly. Let them make the first move. Then we'll show them what real space warfare looks like. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter's orbit, a wall of golden ships stretching across space. 1,000 vessels, the pride of an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. They expected to find Earth's defenders cowering before their might. Instead, they found empty space. Admiral Miller watched from the bridge of the EDF Defender as his plan unfolded. Status of stealth systems. All ships dark, sir. The Empire's sensors are blind. They're still reading our fake signatures near Mars. Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Empire's massive fleet had just walked into humanity's perfect killing ground. Launched the first wave. From their hidden positions around Jupiter's moons, 50 human warships powered up their engines. They had been waiting in total stealth, their advanced systems making them invisible to Imperial sensors. Sir, Tactical reported, the Empire is launching their first attack wave at our decoy signatures. Their main fleet is holding position exactly where we wanted them. Send in the drones. 1,000 automated fighters streaked out from their hiding spots behind Jupiter's smaller moons. They moved faster than any Imperial ship could track, their attack patterns seemingly random but precisely calculated by their AI cores. The Imperial fleet's response was predictably rigid. They shifted their formation to face the drone attack, bunching their ships even closer together, exactly as planned. All ships, execute Pattern Delta, Miller ordered. Weapons free. Earth's warships accelerated to full combat speed, emerging from stealth in perfect attack positions. Their first salvo of kinetic rounds struck before the Empire even registered their presence. The results were devastating. Tungsten rods, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds, tore through multiple Imperial ships with each shot. The Empire's energy shields, designed to stop laser fire, might as well have been tissue paper. First salvo impact, Tactical announced. 47 Imperial capital ships destroyed. Their formation is breaking. The Imperial fleet tried to respond, their laser arrays firing brilliant beams into space. But human ships were already moving, their speeds and maneuvers making them impossible targets for the Empire's outdated targeting systems. Launch missile swarms, Miller commanded. Target their command ships. Thousands of missiles erupted from Earth's warships and hidden weapon platforms. Each one carried a payload that could crack a small moon, guided by AI systems that could outthink any Imperial defense. The Empire's response was chaos. Their neat formation collapsed as ships tried to evade the missile swarms. Some captains attempted to shoot down the missiles with lasers, only to discover they were targeting decoys, while the real weapons struck from different angles. Enemy fleet losing cohesion, Tactical reported. 312 ships destroyed. They're trying to regroup, but their commands are conflicting. Miller watched as his forces executed a perfect pincer movement. Human ships, moving with impossible grace, herded the Imperial vessels into killing zones where overlapping fields of fire left no room for escape. Sir, communications called out. We're receiving surrender signals from multiple Imperial ships. Accept them, Miller ordered. Direct surrendered vessels to the designated safe zones. Continue the attack on all others. The battle had lasted less than an hour, but the outcome was already clear. The Empire's mighty armada, which had terrorized thousands of worlds, was being systematically destroyed by a force a 20th its size. New contact. Tactical suddenly announced. Imperial super-dreadnought emerging from hyperspace. Sir, it's 3 times the size of their other ships. Miller studied the massive vessel as it appeared. The Empire's final card. A ship so large it could probably house a small city. Its laser arrays were already charging, building up to what the Empire probably thought would be a devastating blast. Target that ship, Miller ordered calmly. All vessels, fire when ready. 20 human warships turned their main guns toward the super-dreadnought. 40 kinetic rounds accelerated to devastating speeds, their impact points carefully calculated. The Empire's greatest warship didn't even have time to fire its weapons. It split apart like a ripe fruit, its massive hull torn to pieces by weapons it had never been designed to resist. Enemy flagship destroyed, Tactical reported. Remaining Imperial vessels are retreating in disorder. 487 enemy ships confirmed destroyed. 142 surrendered. The rest are running. Miller nodded slowly. Send word to Earth. Tell them the battle is over. And prepare rescue operations for the surrendered ships. The Empire had just learned a harsh lesson. Size doesn't matter when you're fighting an enemy centuries ahead of you in technology. Their first major defeat in 10,000 years had taken less than an hour. The Imperial Senate chamber buzzed with panic. Thousands of representatives from across the Empire gathered in the massive golden hall, their voices echoing off ornate walls that had stood for millennia. Today, those walls seemed to be closing in on them. Admiral Miller stood calmly before the Senate, his simple blue uniform a stark contrast to their elaborate robes. Behind him, a hologram showed the destruction of their grand fleet, a continuous replay of their greatest defeat. "This is impossible," shouted one senator, his blue skin almost white with rage. "No primitive world could defeat our mighty armada." Miller let the outburst pass. He had expected this reaction. "The recording speaks for itself," he said quietly. "Your fleet was defeated because you assumed bigger meant better. You stopped innovating. You stopped learning." The Supreme Chancellor, an elderly figure draped in golden robes, raised his hand for silence. "You destroyed centuries of tradition in 1 hour, human. Why are you here instead of conquering our worlds?" "Because humanity doesn't want conquest," Miller replied. "We want peace, but peace through strength, not submission." He gestured, and a new hologram appeared, a demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. The senators watched in stunned silence as a single human destroyer easily outmaneuvered and disabled 3 Imperial ships in a training exercise. "Your people are in rebellion," Miller continued. 17 systems have already requested Earth's protection. They've seen what real technological advancement looks like, and they want to learn. The chamber erupted again. Some senators shouted for war, others for surrender. A few called for cooperation. The Supreme Chancellor watched it all with ancient, tired eyes. "Show them," Miller commanded. The hologram changed again, this time displaying Earth's shipyards. Modern vessels under construction, each one more advanced than anything the Empire had ever built. But more importantly, it showed schools, research centers, and collaboration between different species. "This could be your future," Miller said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "Earth is willing to share non-military technology. Medical advances, clean energy, faster than light travel that doesn't require city-sized engines." A younger senator stood up. "And what do you want in return, human?" "Change," Miller answered simply. "Real change. No more conquest. No more forcing primitive worlds to submit. The galaxy is big enough for everyone to grow at their own pace." The Supreme Chancellor raised his hand again. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you?" Miller smiled slightly. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that the strongest civilizations are built on cooperation, not conquest. We're offering you a chance to learn that lesson without losing everything." He pressed a button, and a new image appeared. The surrender terms. They were surprisingly lenient. Protected neutral zones, technological exchange programs, democratic reforms. Not the harsh demands of a conqueror, but the outstretched hand of a potential ally. "The choice is yours," Miller continued. "Continue fighting with outdated weapons and rigid thinking, or join us in building something better. But understand this: Earth will defend itself and others from any future aggression." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Centuries of imperial doctrine were crumbling before their eyes. Some senators looked terrified. Others looked relieved. The Supreme Chancellor stood slowly. "You have defeated our greatest fleet, shattered our most sacred military traditions, and now you offer us help." He shook his head in wonder. Perhaps this is the change our empire has needed for a very long time." "We have much to learn from you," the young senator added, earning nods from others. Miller looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of fear, anger, and hope on alien faces. "Then let's begin. Earth's diplomatic team is ready to discuss the details of our cooperation." As he left the Senate chamber, Miller couldn't help but think about how far humanity had come. They had prepared for war, built powerful weapons, created advanced technology. But in the end, their greatest strength wasn't their warships or their weapons. It was their ability to offer peace, even in victory. The Empire was changing, whether they wanted to or not. They were joining the modern galaxy, and humanity would help guide them into this new age, not as conquerors, but as teachers. 1 year after the Great Battle, the Imperial capital world looked very different. Modern ships shared space with traditional Imperial vessels, their designs a striking contrast of efficiency versus ornate decoration. On the surface, human teachers worked alongside Imperial scientists, sharing knowledge that had been locked away by tradition for millennia. Admiral Miller walked through the newly established Galactic Cooperation Center, accompanied by the young Imperial senator who had first supported peace. The massive building represented everything the new treaty stood for, a place where different species could learn from each other. "Your people learn quickly," Miller observed, watching an Imperial engineer excitedly explain new engine concepts to his colleagues. "When you're allowed to think differently, amazing things happen," the senator replied. "Already our ships are twice as efficient. Some of our younger captains have even started copying your combat tactics." They stopped at a large window overlooking the space dock. An Imperial cruiser was being retrofitted with human-designed engines. Nearby, Earth engineers studied the Empire's artificial gravity systems, one of the few areas where Imperial technology had actually surpassed human development. "The border worlds report a 60% decrease in pirate activity," Miller said. "Amazing what a few human patrol ships can do. And our people are safer than they've been in centuries," the senator added, though some of the older admirals still grumble about tradition. Miller smiled. The Empire's military had been the hardest to convince. Many officers had resigned rather than adapt to new ways of thinking, but their replacements were eager to learn, to grow, to try new ideas. "Message from Earth Defense Command, sir," Miller's communicator chirped. "The first joint training exercise is complete. Imperial crews showed significant improvement in response times and tactical flexibility." This was the real victory. Not the battle that had humbled the Empire, but the peace that followed. Humanity had proven themselves not just superior warriors, but patient teachers. "Look there," the senator pointed to a new arrival. A ship of clearly alien design, but incorporating both human and Imperial technology. "The Free Worlds Alliance. They're joining the cooperation program too." Miller nodded. Other civilizations, seeing how humanity had changed the Empire, were reaching out. The galaxy was waking up from its long sleep of technological stagnation. "How are the educational reforms progressing?" Miller asked as they entered the center's main conference room. "Better than expected. When we showed young Imperials how much knowledge had been suppressed by tradition, well, they were angry at first, but that anger turned into motivation. They want to catch up to humanity. The conference room's displays showed various projects across Imperial space, new schools teaching modern science, research centers exploring technologies that had been forbidden for generations, shipyards building vessels that combined the best of both civilizations, and the primitive worlds. Miller asked carefully. The senator smiled proudly. All colonial governors have been replaced with diplomatic advisors. We're helping those worlds develop at their own pace, just as Earth insisted. Some have already reached spaceflight on their own. A group of young Imperial officers entered the room, their uniforms showing the new combined insignia of the Galactic Cooperation Force. They saluted both Miller and the senator. Another change, as Imperials had traditionally only acknowledged their own kind. The next generation, the senator said softly. They won't make our mistakes. They won't let pride blind them to progress. Miller watched the young officers studying tactical displays, asking questions, suggesting improvements. This was what Earth had hoped for, not just defeating the Empire, but helping it grow. Your people could have destroyed us, the senator mused. Instead, you forced us to become better, stronger, wiser. That's the real strength of humanity, Miller replied. Not our weapons or our ships, but our ability to learn, to teach, to adapt. And now we can all grow stronger together. Outside, the galactic capital's twin suns set on a changed empire. The old golden halls still stood, but inside them, new ideas flourished. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had sparked a revolution of thought that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. The future was no longer about conquest and submission. It was about cooperation, innovation, and the endless possibilities that came with finally learning to think differently.